You know, Alice and I are always looking to be more healthy, and we were just talking about how fasting is one of the best ways to do that, but it's so hard. But the great thing about Prolon is that's not what you're doing. It's not that you're not eating for 5 days. Instead, you're using their science-backed program to convince your body you're fasting.
You guys, this 5-day program really is amazing. It comes beautifully packaged and it does all the thinking for you. Each day is its own box. And by following their program, I know I just feel so much better. And I can't wait to experience Prolon Next Gen and continue to see results. For a limited time, you can be first in line to experience the new Next Gen at special savings. Prolon is offering the Prosecutors listeners 15% off site-wide plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/prosecutors. That's PROLONLIFE.com/prosecutors to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/prosecutors. We've got a very different kind of sponsor for this episode, The Jordan Harbinger Show, which is a podcast you really should be listening to. And I know that every day somebody tells you that you just have to listen to some podcast and you nod and say, sure, and then you never listen to it. Don't let that happen here. Jordan's show, which Apple named one of its best of 2018, is aimed at making you a better informed, more critical thinker so you can get a sense of how the world actually works and come to your own conclusions about what's happening even inside your own brain. Each episode is a conversation with a different fascinating guest. And when I say there's something for everyone here, I really mean that. In one episode, Jordan talks to a hostage negotiator from the FBI who offers techniques on how to get people to like and trust you, which sounds useful and disturbing at the same time.
This is a show you guys are going to love. If you were listening to our show a couple weeks ago and you heard that excerpt where a lady discussed her experience with the Westboro Baptist Church, and you were intrigued, that is the Jordan Harbinger Show, and that's the kind of interview you guys are going to get. Jordan has a true crime starter pack you're going to love. You should jump into this immediately if you haven't listened to it. We love the Jordan Harbinger Show, and we think you will as well. Search for The Jordan Harbinger Show. That's HARB as in boy, IN as in Nancy, GER on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. The Jordan Harbinger Show. You will enjoy it. I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the Prosecutors. Today on The Prosecutors, we dive deeper into the evidence in the Adnan Syed case. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of The Prosecutors. I'm Brett, and I'm joined, as always, by my Akatavanti. Wait, let me try that again. Akatavanti, my Akatavanti co-host, Alice.
I love that word. I have no idea what it means, and if it means homely, I'll still take it because it sounds awesome.
Homely in Italian. No, it means captivating, and that's Sarah. And I butchered the pronunciation, I'm sure. But I think by the fourth one, I was a little bit closer to how you pronounce it.
Is it Italian?
It is Italian, yes.
Because I have never been to Italy, but it is it's like my next trip, which might be in 2048. But I cannot wait to go to Italy.
Well, you know, we want to rent like a house in Tuscany, like in that book/movie.
Yeah, you invited me. Did you forget?
That's what I'm saying. We. Yeah, so that would be fun. We could do the podcast from Italy.
That actually would be
Wouldn't
really cool.
We could
do a
meetup
in Italy.
Ooh, I love it.
That would actually be awesome.
I love Italy because I like to eat, and they have fantastic food.
I imagine the food is delicious.
The food is so good.
Yet to go, but very excited.
Well, look, I don't know that Adnan, Syed, and Heyman Lee have anything to do with Italy, but we're glad everybody's back here today. I think this is our 7th episode on Adnan, Syed, which is episode 5 in our outline. So once again, that's how we're doing. And I got to tell you, even if we weren't chatty Cathys, don't think we're going to get through this particular outline in one episode. We're probably going to fall a little bit further behind, but that's okay. That's okay. As we've said many times, we're doing this our way, and our way is to talk a lot. So that's what you guys come for.
And this might take a lot of lives to get through, too, because I think we've hit the 4-month sleep regression, but there's nothing to regress from, and so we just aren't sleeping at all now. So we'll see how far we get, Brett.
Well, if you need to bring Sweet Brittany in and listen to a little bit of the podcast, people love her. So
she knows a lot of murder at this point. I'm a little worried.
Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, well, we've talked a lot about this case, the murder of Heyman Lee and Adnan Syed. Last week, we dove into some of the evidence, some of the things people talk about a lot. Probably was a little controversial. I don't know. I don't really care. And now we're going to get into yet more of the sort of strange things, the personalities, things you've heard, and probably things you haven't in this case. Alice, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. And, one of these people who's part of this, story has always interested me is Stephanie McPherson. You guys may remember Stephanie was Jay's girlfriend, and she's interested in me, ever since I ever heard this story because, she kind of is the reason that Adnan gives to hang out with Jay that day, the day that Hay disappears, because it's Stephanie's birthday. He, says that he wants to make sure Jay has a present for his girlfriend, Stephanie, because Stephanie is Adnan's very, very close friend. Stephanie said that before Adnan was arrested, Jay didn't say anything about the murders, other than that she should stay away from Adnan. By the way, this is all very interesting because obviously Jay is dating Stephanie, but Stephanie is very, very close friends with Adnan, and their relationship predates her dating relationship with Jay. Now, after Jay was picked up by the police and questioned, he told Stephanie that Adnan had killed Hay. He told her that day he had Adnan's car and Adnan had Hay's car. After Adnan learned that Jay had been questioned, he called Stephanie and asked her why Jay was being questioned. Stephanie told Adnan she did not know. But Adnan said that he was worried because the cops were talking to everyone about him, but weren't talking to him. So Stephanie is kind of central to this whole story, yet there's not really that much known about what she knew and when she knew, because she's obviously very close to the two people who are implicated in at least the cover-up of Hay's body.
And Jay will say later on that one of the reasons he didn't tell anybody sooner about this whole thing was that Adnan had essentially threatened Stephanie. It kind of said something like, you've seen what I can do type thing. And that's when Jay told her she needed to stay away from him. I don't know if I buy that, to be honest with you. It seems kind of convenient. It seems like he obviously feels guilty, assuming he's telling the truth. He obviously feels guilty about what happened. I think he's kind of coming up with reasons. And one of the reasons was, well, maybe Adnan would hurt Stephanie. I mean, maybe, I don't know. I find it a stretch. I'll say that. I find it a little bit of a stretch. And Stephanie's an interesting person and just one of those people you hear a lot about, but you don't really hear from that much in this case. And look, there's a lot of people like that, and that's not that surprising. In any investigation, there's going to be a lot of people who were talked to at various times, who are sort of peripheral to the crime, that just kind of fall away. And when you're looking at the case 15, 20 years later, maybe you're like, man, I wish they'd talked to that person more, but at the time, for whatever reason, it just didn't seem important. So let's talk about Adnan's brother, Ali. And this is somebody who really became important once the defense file became public. We've talked about this a few times, and I think this is one of those cases. Well, I don't know. I've never really seen anything like this, but if there is a case that is sort of a flashing warning sign to anybody who wants to support the innocence of a person, it's this one. Don't release the defense file if you can help it, because when you do that, invariably there's going to be stuff in there that's not going to be good for the person in question, and we see a lot of that with Adnan, and the defense's interview with his brother Ali is one of those. It's fascinating. And in his interview with the defense, his brother, it says a couple of things that are pretty striking. Number one, he says that Adnan is a very good liar. He says that Adnan could lie about anything and you would not be able to tell if he is telling the truth or not. He says Adnan can be very convincing, which, I mean, one of the hearts of this case is you listen to Cyril and you believed Adnan. And then you see his brother basically say, well, of course you believed him because he could lie to anybody. And that's an interesting thing to say to the defense team if you're the brother.
And here's the thing. We know this to be true, right? We know that Adnan is multifaceted. He has many sides of himself. He has the honor student. He has the mosque going, mosque serving, perfect son of the immigrant. He has the girlfriend that his parents disapprove of, probably relationships and things that he does with his girlfriend, and friends that his family, or his parents at least, don't know anything about. Making no judgment about those, except that we know that he has many sides of himself that are kept secret from other sides of his life. And so you kind of have to be a good liar. If liar is strikes a chord, a negative chord, you can just say someone who's very good at compartmentalizing and making the different compartments of your life believe that you are fully within that one compartment at all times. In other words, you're a liar.
Yeah, and you wonder if maybe that's what his brother's talking about. You read it, you don't really have any context. The only reason we have this is because it came out so many years later, and you think, is he talking about in general, or is this sort of his brother still a little upset that he dated this girl and lied about it for so long and nobody knew anything about it? I mean, that's definitely a possibility. By the way, this interview was in August of 1999, so a few months after Adnan had been arrested, and as the defense is still sort of getting ready to do, to defend Adnan to the very best of their ability. Another thing he tells the defense, and we mentioned this in the timeline, is that on the day of the murders at around 3:30, Adnan had called his new girlfriend, Nisha. This is pretty important for a couple reasons. Number one, people have spent a lot of time and effort trying to show that the call to Nisha on the day of the murders wasn't actually from Adnan, that it was an accident, it was a butt dial from Jay, like it happened some other way, right? Well, here you have his brother saying, oh yeah, Adnan, he definitely called Nisha. So now you've got Jay saying that Adnan called Nisha. You got Nisha saying that Adnan called Nisha. And you got his brother saying that Adnan called Nisha. And you've got the cell phone record saying that the cell phone called Nisha. And all at the same time makes you think probably called Nisha on this day. The other thing that's interesting about it, why is his brother bringing this up? Now, we talked about this Nisha call. And we talked about the fact that Jay says, and Nisha says, that Adnan put Jay on the phone. And we said the reason you would do that is alibi creation. If this is right around the time of the murder, you call somebody, you have a third party who talks to them, you're creating an alibi. And you got to think that the reason Ali knows this and the reason he's bringing it up to the defense is in his mind, he's thinking alibi. And you got to wonder, did Adnan tell him? Hey, yeah, I called Nisha that day. She can tell you I wasn't murdering Hay. I was on the phone with her. I don't really know how else Ali would know this. If the defense told him, why would he be telling it back to them? So it seems like he got it from some other perspective.
And it does seem like a strange fact to bring up because he doesn't say that he knows Adnan called Nisha because he was there with him. In fact, he wasn't there with Adnan. So it's just kind of strange. There are many calls that Adnan can make in a day. How did he know that he called Nisha at a specific time on a specific day when he wasn't there to witness it? So I think you're right there, Brett. I think that makes a lot of sense that it would be coming from probably Adnan or Nisha, one of them, to Ali, so much so that he would bring it up of all the calls that Adnan made that day.
And that wasn't the only interesting thing that Ali says. He also suggests that the defense team should talk to Jawan Gordon. You may recall Jawan Gordon. We talked about him just last episode. He describes him as Adnan's best friend outside of the Muslim community. And recall, it was in fact Jawan who told police that Adnan had a girl named Asia write a letter for him suggesting an alibi. And Ali, pointing to Jawan, if you doubted his credibility or wondered would he really know, well, you have Ali saying, yeah, he's his best friend outside the Muslim community, and he's the one who told this to the police, which makes you think probably true. And that's not it. Finally, Ali said that Jay had told Tayyib Hussein about his involvement in the murders. According to Tayyib, Jay said that he helped Adnan bury the body. Jay told Tayyib that Adnan had called Jay the day before asking for his help in the murder. Jay said his reply to Adnan was that he would not help in killing Hay, but he would help Adnan bury the body. Jay further went on to tell Tayyib that he met Adnan on the day of the incident at a gas station where Adnan showed Jay the body. Look, Jay told a lot of people about this, and this sort of goes back to when you're thinking through theories of this, it just starts to feel more and more like either Jay's involved in this or Adnan's involved in it, or they're both involved in it. But Jay's told a lot of people that he was somehow involved in this. One thing about this story is this is now the 4th or 5th place that he said that he initially saw the body. Now he's saying a gas station. You know, he said several places. I can't even remember them all. The Best Buy, his grandmother's house, a gas station, library. I mean, there's everywhere.
Side of the road.
In between. Side of the road. That's another one. So I don't know what to make of that, but it is interesting to me that Ali is telling the defense team, hey, there's another guy you need to talk to who Jay may have backed up this story with. And that's not all from the defense case. And we're just going to talk a lot about this file because it is really intriguing, and it's something that wasn't available to Serial, so a lot of you haven't heard. There's something that people have come to refer to as the Dion note. So early on in the defense investigation on March 12th, 1999, Adnan told his first attorneys about an interaction with someone named Dion Taylor. This is presumably on January 13th, as the rest of the notes are about that day, even though it doesn't specifically say this happened on January 13th. And according to this note, Adnan says that around 3:30, his car was making a funny noise, and Dion saw Adnan and commented about it. Some have interpreted this as an early attempt to construct an alibi, and it bears an eerie similarity to the excuse Adnan supposedly used to get into Hayes' car, that his car was having problems and that it was in the shop. It also couldn't be true. We know that Jay had Adnan's car. I think the most charitable way to look at this is Adnan at some point around then had a problem with his car and thought maybe it was on the 13th, told his defense team about it, they ran it down, and it didn't lead to anything. Dion Taylor is someone that, to my knowledge, nobody's rarely talked to, so I don't know what he says about this, and it's a small thing. It may not be that important, but a lot of people who think Adnan is guilty think this is an example of him trying to create that alibi early on, and then eventually sort of switches over to the Asia McClain alibi.
You know, a lot of the defense's file you can see, and this is not necessarily improper because the defense is often leaning on the defendant to say, you know, where should we go investigate? Where should we get leads? Where should we kind of figure out our side of the story? And so, but you can kind of see Adnan's fingerprints on all of these little touchstones. They are all pointing to potential alibis, but funnily enough, they're actually pointing to things that are inconsistent or consistent with a story that kind of points to his guilt. And that's okay for the defense. They're doing their investigation, right? They're starting kind of from square one. They're kind of going through all the avenues, and they're probably building a lot of rapport with, for example, Ali, because they are on the same side, right? They're on Adnan's team. And so Ali is going to tell them everything because you'd rather hear it from your own people than be surprised later on, because they have to figure out how they work with the good facts and the bad facts. And that's why what Brett said is very true. You don't really want your defense file to be released if you're trying to fight for an innocence claim. Another interesting person is Inez Butler. Inez Butler is someone who works at the school, and she knew both Adnan and Hay. After she was questioned by the police, she asks Adnan if he knows anything, and she recounts that conversation going like this. She said, "Things look pretty bad. Sweetheart, you don't know anything about what's going on. You don't know what could have happened to her." And Adnan tells her the last memory he has of Hay is a bad one. He tells Inez that they had a fight about senior prom. And we know that there was a really bad fight at the senior prom. Remember, that was when his parents showed up. But that very well predated many other interactions that Adnan and Hay had.
And that wasn't the senior prom. That was the fall dance or whatever. Senior prom would have been coming up. Senior prom would have been later in the year. Remember, according to Asia, he's going to be prom king this year because everybody's so fascinated by him.
That's right.
And this, I don't know. I have a theory. I already have a theory, as you guys probably know. And this fits into my theory a little bit. I think this is a fascinating interaction between him and Inez Butler. It's another time where Adnan discusses the sort of last interaction they had, which presumably is really on the phone. If you believe Adnan, at most he talked to her in the hall. Well, if you believe Adnan, he probably didn't even talk to her that day. If you think Adnan's lying a little bit, but not a lot, he talked to her in the hall about getting a ride that day, but never got a ride with her. But he's told people that on that phone call, he's told two people that on the phone call the night before, she tried to get back together with him and he said no. And now he's telling Inez Butler there was some fallout about senior prom. So I don't know exactly what it means, but I think it's pretty interesting.
Well, for those who are not reading between the lines, I think that's a pretty good theory that that phone call probably had something to do with the senior prom. And it was the flip of what he says. It was not, hey, trying to get back together with him, but probably the other way around. And it may have been something as innocent as like, let's just go to senior prom together. And here she is doodling in her diary about, you know, her new boyfriend and how much she loves him. The boyfriend, not Adnan. So we know that Adnan called Hay before midnight on January 12th, right before the day that she goes and disappears. And despite saying that she had plans to see her that day or to be picked up by her potentially, when she disappears, or at least when she doesn't pick him up or she doesn't give him a ride, Adnan never calls Hay. So why didn't Adnan ever call Hay? And, you know, this is a question that is not new. It's often asked by those who believe Adnan is responsible for Hay's disappearance as to why he never called her when he found out that she was missing. Because remember, he does find out both from friends and also from the police that Hay has gone missing. Adnan, and in fact, many of her friends, believed Hay had run away, possibly to California. So it makes sense that anyone missing her could have tried to call her cell phone because she would have just been alive and well, just in a different state or in transit to a different state. But the problem is we know that Hay didn't have a cell phone. So you'd have to call her home. And Adnan never called her home. Hay did at least at one time have a pager. Hay's friends mentioned paging her constantly after she disappeared. Obviously, she never answered. And again, looking at that pager's records, Adnan never paged Hay. And the only time Adnan ever testified in one of his post-conviction hearings, the prosecution hammered on this point. And Adnan didn't have a good answer for why he didn't call Hay. If he's innocent, the most likely explanation is one he didn't bring up. The family didn't exactly like his involvement with Hay, and he would have had to call their home. And it's not like he was close to Hay's mom or brother. They'd been broken up. It probably would have made them mad if he had called the house. But still, it's not clear how much anyone ever called or paged her, including people obviously not involved in her disappearance. So while this is a powerful piece of evidence to some people, really might not be all that significant. Nevertheless, before she disappeared, Adnan called her and paged her all the time, to the point of annoyance, even after they broke up. So the abrupt cutoff on January 13th of no more communication with Hay's pager or cell or phone is very stark.
Yeah, and you know, when people look at this, I think this is one of those that probably it cuts whichever way you already lean. So if you lean Adnan's guilty, then of course he didn't call her because he knew she was dead. And if you don't lean that way, then you say, look, what's he going to do? Call the home? There's nobody there. And the pager thing, like I said, some people say she didn't even have a pager at that point, though her friends say they paged her, but they could be misremembering. I mean, that's one of those, you remember paging her all the time, but in reality she didn't have a pager. And if you told them that, they'd be like, huh, that's weird. I could have sworn I remembered paging her. Maybe she did have a pager, maybe she didn't. People like to point out that Dawn didn't call her. Now, you know, she'd been dating Dawn for less than 2 weeks, so not sure that Dawn would call her. She'd been with Adnan for a year, essentially, when they broke up, and they talked at the time, so maybe it's a little weirder. But look, it's something that stands out to people. It certainly stood out to the prosecution when they had him on the stand. Obviously, their ability to cross-examine him in that post-conviction type situation is pretty narrow, but this is what they picked. They really hammered on this, you didn't call. And his answers were kind of dumb. I mean, he basically says, well, I just asked her friends. You know, I talked to the various other people who knew her instead of calling her. It's like, really? That's your excuse? You just asked her friends if they had heard from her? Like, a better reason would have been something like we were saying. But, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's telling the truth. He just thought, hey, I'll call Aisha instead of calling her myself. But in any event, he didn't call her. Which brings us to Adnan's cell phone. So Adnan's cell phone was either purchased for him by Bilal Ahmad, or he had worked to save the money for the cell phone itself, but Bilal put him on his bill. So Bilal had him on his cell phone bill. Bilal had his own cell phone bill, and then Adnan was sort of a caller on that, so he could use his numbers and everything else. Presumably the reason for that is Adnan wasn't 18, so he couldn't have his own bill, and I guess he did not want to ask his parents to open a cell phone for him or his brother. I think this is probably something he was trying to hide, as he was using this cell phone, at least what he said, was the purpose of the cell phone is because he wanted to be able to call girls. So he gets Bilal to buy him, or at least to activate this cell phone for him, literally the day before Hay goes missing. Now, Bilal, he will eventually become a dentist in Washington, D.C. I think at the time he was not yet a dentist, but he would become one soon thereafter. He was active in the local mosque, and that's how Adnan knew him. But in 2017, he was convicted of 6 counts of sexual assault, all of males who he would sedate with nitrous oxide and then assault. He was sentenced to 16 and a half years in prison. Now, as we said, Bilal, he not only maybe purchased a cell phone, it's just not entirely clear. Adnan will say at times that his job he was working was to save up to buy the cell phone. I don't know if I buy that or not, but either way, what we know for certain is the bill was Bilal's. And for the bill from December 17th, 1998 to January 16th, it was $346. A lot of this was Bilal, but a lot of it was also Adnan. Once he got this cell phone, he used it a lot. Bilal himself apparently had several different cell phone numbers for reasons that aren't entirely clear. And as I said, the phone was activated the day before the murder. Bilal is one of those things that if we were just doing an Adnan, Syed, Hayman Lee podcast and we were going to do this for another year, we would probably spend a lot of episodes on him, because he is you talk about a rabbit hole. I mean, he is a wild card in this entire case. His involvement in this case, what exactly he was doing, what exactly his relationship was with Adnan, why he was getting the cell phone for him. There's all sorts of great questions that are really beyond the scope of what we're doing, but something we wanted to make you guys aware of to the extent you've never heard this before.
So, yes, well, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but so many alarm bells are going off in my head. For one, Bilal is older than Adnan, not by a ton, but he's definitely older. And I personally can't imagine as an adult doing something for a minor behind their parents' back, like getting them a phone that they're not allowed to have, being responsible for said phone, even if it's $346 is not nothing. Certainly not nothing when you're 17 years old. But just to have kind of this open bill that a 17-year-old may or may not be able to pay you back for when you're not their parent, you're not beholden to them in any way. I don't have anyone in my life that I do that for. Even close family members who are on my cell phone bill, I get kind of nervous about, because I'm probably because I've been in law enforcement. I'm I don't know if I want our phone records to be melded and my records to all be subpoenaed in case something goes wrong with your life. But kind of those things, even though they know each other from the mosque, him getting involved with Adnan basically rebelling against his parents, or at least doing something that his parents do not know he's doing or do not approve of, otherwise his parents would get him the phone, is kind of strange. And also the fact that he himself has several cell phone numbers either means that he has multiple cell phone numbers, which maybe you would do that with no bad reason, or he's doing this for multiple people, right? That he may be buying cell phones for lots of people, which is why would you do that? What are you getting in return for that? And why stick your nose in other people's business, especially when these phones are being used for probably things like calling girls when parents don't want them to be calling girls. So I don't know. We'll end it there for now on the rabbit hole, but I know I go down this rabbit trail a lot.
I have a lot I could say about Bilal, but I'm going to leave it as well. We will come back to him. He pops up just repeatedly throughout this case, and he will pop up again. Let's talk about Adnan and Hay's relationship. We talked about this a little bit when we went through the timeline. When the police began to investigate Adnan and Hay, they discovered that, as is no secret now, everybody in the world knows it, they had a passionate teenage relationship, but one that was made all the more intense because it was in some ways forbidden. Hay's parents were Korean, Adnan's were Pakistani Muslim, and Adnan wasn't really supposed to be dating before marriage at all, and certainly not to someone outside of the religion. And it was particularly problematic that they were sexually active. Adnan couldn't tell other Muslims at school about their relationship for fear it might get back to his parents. It's pretty clear, though, that Adnan's parents knew about the relationship. Adnan's mom would apparently listen in on the cell phone calls or the phone calls that Hay and Adnan would have and would confront Adnan about it, though he'd never admit anything. Debbie Warren, who we've talked about before, she was a friend of both Adnan and Hay. She told police that at the homecoming dance, which is that fall dance where everything went sideways, Adnan's parents had approached her about the relationship. She said they weren't rude, but it was clear that they did not approve. But they were upset with Adnan, and they asked him to leave the dance. In fact, he left the dance, and then I guess after they got back home, he jumped back on his bike and went back to the dance. So there was definitely some tension going on in that relationship. Whether it's anything extraordinary or just typical sort of teenage stuff, this kind of situation, we talked about that some in episodes 1 and 2. As for Adnan, look, he was suspicious of Hay. He thought she was cheating on him with someone she was working with. I think Jawan Gordon also talked about that some. And eventually, she was. And they broke up. Warren would say that Adnan was possessive, and her diary reflects that Adnan could be possessive and he could be overbearing. Aisha talked about this some. She talked about this some on Serial, that there were times where Adnan would just sort of show up at girls' events and that he felt overbearing to some extent.
I mean, the jumping on the bike and going back to the dance after being asked by your parents to leave could be one of two things. It could just be that you're like rebelling against your parents, like, you can't tell me what to do, you drag me home, I'm going to go right back. Or it can fall into the kind of possessive camp of it's already been a scene, like there's nothing left for you at the dance. You're not going to the dance to go have a good time. It's like the night is over for you. It's been a terrible night. But if you're jumping on your bike out of desperation to go check on whether Hay is cheating on you, does kind of fall into the more possessive, more drastic, dramatic, I should say, gestures that a boyfriend could do. And so talking about dramatic, we've mentioned it before, but let's talk about Adnan and Hay's sexual relationship, because they were sexually active and they would have sex primarily in Adnan's car, in parking lots at various places, as well as at friends' parties and houses. And this is, of course, because of what Brett just mentioned, that their families, or at least Adnan's parents, were not okay with him dating Hay, and certainly not okay with him being sexually active. So they kind of had to be more covert about where they had sex. And Debbie Warren knew of at least 2 mall parking lots that they'd had sex in: Owen Mills Mall and Security Mall. Adnan would tell his defense team that the Best Buy parking lot was their designated spot to have sex after school started. Saad Chaudhry would also testify that he believed the Best Buy parking lot was one of their spots to have sex, but he wasn't positive. Basically, Best Buy has come up through multiple witnesses as at least a meeting place for kind of these sexual rendezvous between Adnan and Hay. We also know that they would have sex in Patapsco State Park across from the golf course. Nothing like a golf course to put you in the mood, I guess. I guess it's very serene. There was a thought among the police that Hay had a pregnancy scare at some point. Remember, we did actually read some diary entries that might have been about a pregnancy scare and might have even had an abortion. In the police file is a poem that Hay wrote about a girl having an abortion after a rape. Now back to that Best Buy parking lot. The most significant thing Adnan told his defense counsel was that their routine was to have sex in the Best Buy parking lot after school. Then Hay would leave to get her niece, and they would meet up again after school. This is in direct contradiction to what Adnan told Sarah Koenig in Serial, that he would never do anything with Hay after school because she had to go pick up her niece. Again, this is coming from the defense's own files that they released. Now, this was presented by Adnan as proof positive that he wouldn't ask Hay for a ride, and that if he did, she wouldn't give him one. Here's what he said on Serial. Quote, "I wouldn't have asked for a ride after school. I'm sure that I didn't ask her because, well, immediately after school, because I know anyone who knows her knows she always goes to pick up her little cousin. So she's not doing anything for anyone right after school. No matter what. No trip to McDonald's, not a trip to 7-Eleven. She took that very seriously. But going to the Best Buy parking lot was something they regularly did after school, even when Hay had to pick up her niece. Remember, Adnan's own words was once school started, Best Buy was the meeting place, not some other places that they'd had sex before, because Best Buy was close to school. And she, of course, had to be close by to pick up her niece soon after school let out. Now, it's hard to call this statement anything other than what it is, a blatant out-and-out lie by Adnan. It's not a mistake. You don't forget that sort of thing. It's a lie, and it's a really big one.
And I think it's worth taking a moment for this one, because we've talked about some of the things where Adnan has been misleading, and we've talked about why that might have been the case. And people lie for a lot of reasons, and we've talked about all the different reasons people lie. But this lie, I want you to think about Serial. Why so many of you, when you heard Serial and it finished up, you came away thinking that Adnan was innocent. Now, there was stuff that followed that. There was Bob Ruff's show, and there was Undisclosed, and there was the HBO documentary and all that other stuff. But a lot of people, when they finished with Serial, they thought, this guy's innocent. Why? Why did you think that? I want you to think back to where you were in 2014 or 2015 when you heard it. Why did you think that? It wasn't because Sarah Koenig laid out a whole bunch of evidence one way or the other. It was because you heard Adnan Syed, you listened to what he said, and you believed him because he was believable. I want to go back to this lie. This lie, he's not lying to the corrupt cops, and he's not lying to the cold, closed-minded prosecutors who want to railroad him. He's lying to you. And he did it with all of the convincing boy next door, gee shucks, all of that he put into every statement he said in Serial. This lie doesn't necessarily mean he killed anybody, but if you came away from Serial thinking, I think Adnan Syed is innocent because I believe him, well, he lied through his teeth to you when it came to this. He absolutely knew that she could take him somewhere after work or after school and go pick up her cousin because he did it with her all the time.
Craving your next action-packed adventure? Audible delivers thrills of every kind on your command, like Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, where a lone astronaut must save humanity from extinction, narrated with stunning intensity by Ray Porter. From electrifying suspense and daring quest to spine-tingling horror and romance in far-off realms, unleash your adventurous side with gripping titles that'll keep you guessing. Discover exclusive Audible originals, hotly anticipated new releases, and must-listen bestsellers that hook you from the first minute. Because Audible knows there's no greater thrill than the one that speaks to you. Discover what lies beyond the edge of your seat. Start your free 30-day trial at audible.com/WonderyUS. That's audible.com/WonderyUS.
Bombas makes the most comfortable socks, underwear, and T-shirts.
Warning, Bombas are so absurdly comfortable you may throw out all your other clothes.
Sorry, do we legally have to say that?
No, this is just how I talk, and I really love my Bombas.
They do feel that good. And they do good, too. One item purchased equals one item donated.
To feel good and do good, go to bombas.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY for 20% off your first purchase. That's BOMBAS.com/Wondery and use code WONDERY at checkout.
Optimize your nutrition this year with Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal service. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are dietitian approved, ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Choose from 40 weekly options across 8 dietary preferences, like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Eat smarter at factormeals.com/listen50 and use code LISTEN50 for 50% off, plus free shipping on your first box. Factormeals.com/listen50, code LISTEN50.
Mochi Health is here to help you start your weight loss journey with caring, personalized support. Meet one-on-one with board-certified obesity doctors and registered dietitians who truly listen and understand your unique needs. Eligible patients can access affordable GLP-1 medications delivered right to their door each month. No insurance? No problem. Mochi Health accepts FSA and HSA, making care accessible and affordable. And with 24/7 customer service, you'll never feel alone on your path to better health. Get started with Mochi Health today. Take the free quiz at joinmochi.com and use code AUDIO40 at checkout for $40 off your first month of membership. That's joinmochi.com with promo code AUDIO40.
This message comes from Greenlight. Ready to start talking to your kids about financial literacy? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app that teaches kids and teens how to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest with your guardrails in place. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Join millions of parents and kids building healthy financial habits together on Greenlight. Get started risk-free at greenlight.com/Wondery.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
And it's not like she only had 15 minutes. She had about an hour of 15 minutes between the time school got out and she had to pick up her little cousin. And it's true, there's always an element of truth in good lies. It's true that she took her responsibility of picking up her kindergarten cousin very seriously. And that's exactly why people knew she was missing, because she never missed picking up her cousin. And within 15 minutes of her not being there to pick up her cousin, the police were called. That's how serious she was about picking her cousin up. So Adnan is completely right about that part of it. He built the lie around it, that she took it very seriously and that she wouldn't have ever missed it. The part that he lied about is very important. It's that she wouldn't do anything with him in the interim. And we know that from his own words to his defense team, that that's a lie.
And once again, defense file. I mean, it is a goldmine. We'll put it up. We'll put it on the website. You can all look at it. You can read through it if you want to. It's been attached to various prosecution filings, so you can read it and you'll see this stuff for yourself. And there's a lot more than what we're going to go through.
And I want to point out too, this is not in Serial. Sarah Koenig goes on and on about how it's so hard to remember things weeks and months and years later. And Adnan is obviously talking to the Serial podcast years later, but we just read you what he said, and it was not a vague memory. It was, in fact, embellished with so many specifics. He mentions no trips to McDonald's, 7-Eleven, all these things. I mean, it's not just I really don't think I would have asked her for anything because we never did anything, and left it at that. It is embellished with all of the details, specific details of a good lie. And I think that's so interesting because she starts the entire Serial podcast. The precursor for the first episode is on and on about how memories fade. This is not a faded memory remembrance by Adnan of what his interactions with Hay were like after school. This is embellished with all of the believable specific details to make you believe him. And that's why Ali, his brother, is totally right. He's a really good liar. That's a fantastic lie. She wouldn't even go to McDonald's, not even 7-Eleven. Those are places she would normally go or high schoolers would go to, but never after school. Great lies. This is a fantastic lie. I remember listening to it, 10 years ago? And thinking he sounded totally believable. And like the guy next door, all shucks.
And look, you may think Adnan's guilty, innocent, whatever. But if you believe he doesn't remember having sex with Hay behind the Best Buy parking lot when he was in high school, you're crazy. He absolutely remembers that. He knew what he was doing when he told this lie, whether he's guilty or innocent. And look, just something to remember if credibility is what this entire case turns on for you. Okay, let's talk about something controversial, because we have avoided controversy up to this point in this podcast discussion of this case, and that is religion. So, one of the things people focus on a lot is the prosecution's focus on Adnan's religion. One of the things you'll occasionally hear people say is that this was sort of a biased, bigoted prosecution, that they saw this Muslim boy and out of prejudice, they went after him and they focused on him, and that's the reason that they prosecuted him. And look, there's some interesting things when you look through the file when we're talking about Adnan's religion. So, Adnan was absolutely Muslim, and this came into play for the prosecution, there's no question about that, who believed that the murder was a part of some sort of deep-seated struggle that Adnan was having with his own religion. Whether it's just religion or if it's his family and his religion all sort of combined together, there was a lot sort of going on, and the prosecution wanted to look into this. So after he was arrested, which is in of itself interesting because they arrested him and then sort of started down this as they're putting together their case, they actually commissioned a study on Islam and how it might affect Adnan. And I just want to read this to you because there's something, I find this almost humorous in sort of its naivety, I guess. I mean, this is before 9/11. I guess at the time, Islam for a lot of people was still a very foreign thing. It almost reminds me of some of the stuff you read if you've ever looked at West Memphis 3. In the case file in West Memphis 3, when they talk about devil worship, it's sort of a similar thing. It's just so naive. And I want to read it to you anyway. Clearly, Mr. Syed faced almost insurmountable odds to meet with this infidel or devil in secret. Now, they use that term infidel or devil because that's actually Adnan had told Hay at one point that she was a devil. He says he was joking. She took it pretty seriously. Ownership is not outside of his cultural belief system. After giving her a veil, literally covering her so that only he could have her, he set her apart from all others and for him alone. For all intents and purposes, he marked his territory by giving her a gift of great value within his culture, and in doing so, he sealed her fate with his. By receiving it, perhaps unwittingly, Hay Bin Lee accepted his standard of decorum. To have later been let down by her relationship with another man would certainly been an obvious violation of his culture and a reason to destroy her. For her to have another man dishonored both Adnan Syed and his belief structure, it is acceptable for a Muslim man to control the actions of a woman by completely eliminating her, and still remains possible under the system to find peace and forgiveness with God at the same time. Within this harsh culture, he has not violated any code. He has defended his honor. Hay Min Lee's womanhood diminished both her worth and the act of violence resulting in her death. Under Islamic law, her murder was sanctioned. For many ethnic Pakistanis, incidents like this are commonplace, and in Pakistan, this would not have been a crime, but probably a matter of honor. That is pretty ridiculous and really over the top. I don't think I have to explain for you why that is. Remember, Adnan is an American teenager. I mean,
I was going to say, it's so offensive.
No, his parents...
So offensive.
His parents are immigrants. Like, this idea that Adnan is just going to go around murdering people because they offend his sense of honor or whatever. You know, look, I don't know how much this study affected the prosecution's theory of the case. They certainly talk about Adnan's religion, but they tend to do it in what I think is a little bit more sensible way, which is more what we talked about in the first and second episode, where we talked about sort of the pressures, the cultural pressures on him, how that would have affected him, the things he said. So we wanted to read this to you because I think it's worth knowing. I mean, this is in the prosecution file, and it certainly is something that influenced their thinking, but it is out there enough that even they didn't grab onto this and run with it to that extent once they got to trial.
And I do wonder, I mean, we don't need to dive into how accurate this is about like Islamic law, but the amount of honor killings that I know about within like the faith usually has to do with the woman and her father who does the honor killing, not like some smited lover, typically. But we'll leave it there.
Yeah, well, I think, like I said, I don't think this is the most nuanced evaluation
and it's not
of that.
And usually the honor killings are to defend her honor, not his.
Right, in sort of a weird way, right? So we wanted to read that to you.
It's kind of twisting it.
We wanted to read that to you to just see sort of the extreme version of this. But it is the case, and we read some of this, that Hay's own diary entries kind of led police to look at this. You know, they noted in their reports that Hay wrote that Adnan's religion is his life's driving force. And I'm going to read you just some of her diary entries where she talks about some of this stuff, because I think it's, now that you know sort of like the over-the-top version, I think it's worth it to read sort of her take on it, where she actually knows Adnan and she has a little bit better conception, I think, of how he would actually feel about this, and probably more valuable than this study that was commissioned. So she says, that's what I need to figure out. Do I dare to pull him away from his religion? Miss Savick was all up on my face about it. She said stuff like, well, Adnan used to be so religious and strict last year, but this year he is so loose. Like, I changed him. Actually, I did. And I don't want to pull him away from who he is. I think I need time to organize these things, but I do know one thing. I love him and he loves me. Nothing will change that. And this is when she gets into the whole, she wants to have a recess week to sort of think all this through. Later on, she writes, his religion and Muslim customs are the main thing. It irks me to know that I am against his religion. He called me a devil a few times. I know he was only joking. It's somewhat true. I hate that. It's like making him choose between me and his religion. The second thing is the possessiveness. Independence, rather. I'm a very independent person. I rarely rely on my parents, though I love them. It's just like, I need him. I know I'll do just fine without him, and I need time for myself and with my friends other than him. How dare he get mad at me for planning to hang with Aisha? Third thing is the mind play. I matured out of jealousy shit. I don't get jealous. I think whoever is trying to get me jealous is a fool because they'll definitely lose me. I prefer a straight relationship. We'll come back to all these, but I'll read the third one. This is later on as well. And Adnan had gone on a trip to Dallas. He told me that his religion means life to him, and he hates it when he sees someone purposely going against it. He tried to remain a faithful Muslim all his life, but he fell in love with me, which is a great sin. But he told me that there is no way he'll ever leave me because he can't imagine a life without me. Then he said that one day he would have to choose between me and his religion. This was exactly what Savik was talking about.
Oh, I think she was trying to write Schwab, even though she misspelled it, by the way.
Oh, Schwab. Okay.
It's Hope. It's
Hope
the teacher
Schwab.
Hope. I kept on being like, she didn't know how to spell it, but I think she was trying to say Hope Schwab.
Okay. And look, and Hope Schwab did testify that Hay had asked her for advice on how to handle a relationship with seemingly insurmountable religious differences. And we also talked about how Adnan had asked Hope the same thing about choosing between religion and love. Now, how important is religion itself in this case? I think that's really hard to say. Motives are often complicated. There's nothing more complicated than one's own relationship with their religion. And if religion was a big deal between Adnan and Hay, it didn't stop him from dating Nisha, who was actually Hindu. I think the reality of the situation is what you see in Hay's diary entries. There was a lot of conflicting emotions that Adnan was going through. And if he killed her, I do think all of this played into it. And I think particularly the idea that he had struggled through all this and always picked her. And then all of a sudden she's picking some other guy. I mean, you can see how that could turn into a motive for murder. But I think the prosecution file with its lengthy discussion of Islam and all that stuff, I mean, that's pretty much garbage.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you see here is I don't think that Adnan didn't take his religion seriously, but you can see how contradictory he is, right? He's telling Hay that he hates it when he sees someone opposed to his religion, something that he like brags about doing, right? Hay is not his first girlfriend. I don't think it's the first time he had sex. Maybe not, but certainly he didn't have sex one time. He had sex a lot of times in a lot of different places. All of that is opposed to the religion that he says he hates when other people do it. And it's one thing to internally struggle with your religion. I think anyone who has any religious faith probably struggles with it internally at some point. But it's interesting that Adnan doesn't keep it internal. He externalizes all of it, right? Like he recognizes that Hay is how he is opposing his own religion. But instead of kind of pointing his own fingers at himself, he points it at her and calls her the devil, as opposed to calling himself like the devil for being opposed to his religion. Because some would say that whether you believe in the devil or not, the devil is essentially something or some force that is opposed to your religion. So he never sees himself as being opposed to the religion. He's judging everyone else who's opposing the religion and then calling Hay, who he has chosen to love and have sex with and, you know, continue to stay with despite a lot of angst with his family. Yet she's the devil, not him. And I think that's all very interesting and goes into what she's describing here, the mind play and the manipulation and kind of the control and not having a quote unquote straight relationship. This is all very complex.
And look, we talked about this before, and I don't want to get back into it too much, but you know, this notion that it had to be all or the other. It had to be either he's like the perfect Muslim who does nothing wrong, or he doesn't care about Islam at all and is just like doing whatever he wants. It's just not true. I mean, it is nowhere near that black and white, and never is that black and white. And it certainly wasn't that black and white with him. And I think he makes some great points. And this is another thing. I think you could spend a whole lot of time on this. I will say, I think this is all interesting, but if you actually read the trial transcript and not just the parts that are cherry picked out, but if you read the whole thing, the religion thing doesn't come up that much. It really doesn't. I mean, it comes up, it's mentioned, it's talked about, but it's talked about more in what we're sort of talking about as sort of his possessiveness and this struggle that he's undergoing. There's no, this was an honor killing type thing. It's more, he had sort of chose her over his religion. He'd all these fights with his parents. At one point he's talking about moving out, like all that stuff. It's fights with his mom. And then Hay meets Dawn at the Lens Crafters. On Christmas, she's buying him a leather jacket, and on New Year's Eve, she's going out on a date with him, and by the 13th, she's writing how much she loves him, and he's the most amazing thing in the world. And on the 7th, she's changing all her AIM profile stuff to talk about how much she loves Dawn. And I think that's a much better, much more interesting way to look at this case than it through some sort of religious prism where you're trying to decide whether or not this is a religious-based attack or whether, the prosecution was all about religion. I don't think once you look at the actual transcript of the case that you get there. And even if there was some bias on the prosecution side, and I'm not saying there wasn't, that's not the focus of the trial in the way that, not to keep bringing up West Memphis 3, but they talked a lot about the satanic stuff in West Memphis 3. Like that did come out a lot. And in this case, I don't think you see that as much.
Kind of on that point, too, with the different religions. And obviously, dating someone is not the same as being friends with them. But one thing that we know about Adnan is as much as he himself takes his religion seriously, and he goes to the mosque religiously and does have close relationships within his religious community, he also has really strong relationships and friends outside of his religious community. One of his best friends is Stephanie, who we talked about at the top of this episode, who does not share his religion. He hangs out with Jay, smokes pot with Jay. Jay is not of his same religion. Debbie is one of his good friends. Again, not of his same religion, doesn't go to his mosque. And so friendships obviously are different in kind than dating relationships, but what we see is not someone who is like holed away and on an island of his religious community. He's actually someone who's very integrated in his mainstream American life as well. Now let's talk about Alonzo Sellers' February 9th interview. So we know that Sellers worked at Coppin State, and he was driving his truck home to pick up a plane, which is a woodworking tool you use to shave off wood to make something even. He was going to use it on a door at school, and he picked up this plane and a tall boy of beer, as we know, and was drinking the beer and started to head back to school. But he suddenly had an overwhelming urge to go to the bathroom while he was driving. So he pulled his truck over and walked into the woods in Leakin Park. He went about 127 feet into the woods, and he noticed that the dirt had been disturbed. Then he noticed that there was hair sticking out of that disturbed dirt. He walked over and realized he could also see a foot. Suddenly, Alonzo's urge to go to the bathroom left him, and he went back to the school and informed police of what he had seen in the woods. He said he almost fell over the body as it was right there when he was getting ready to urinate. For his trouble, the police provided him a 3-piece chicken and Sprite from Popeyes, which cost all of a $3.57. And if that doesn't show you how much inflation has been, I don't know what has it. So obviously, when a person finds a dead body, they are going to be at the top of the suspect list. And so it's no surprise that on February 18th, Sellers was given a polygraph test. And the relevant questions and answers are as follows. Before we dive into this, quick disclaimer, we've talked about polygraph tests a lot. They're not admissible in court. We are a little bit dubious as to whether they can actually tell you very much. And just so you know, if you didn't know this already, polygraph tests are not an actual lie detector. They don't read into your mind and see if you're lying. Rather, it's looking at biometrics like your heart rate, your breathing, your temperature, to see if there's a change in your biometrics when you speak about a certain question. And the thought is when you lie, your heart and your breathing and your kind of in the things that you can't control, your involuntary measures of your body change and you can't control it. And therefore it can pick up when you're basically lying. So one of the questions, are you attempting to withhold any information about the death of the female you found in the park? Answer, no. Did you do anything to that girl to cause her death? Answer, no. Had you ever been in the company of that girl you found before the day you found her? Answer, no. Had you ever been to the spot where the girl was found before the day you found her? Answer, no. The polygraph examiner noted that on the day of the examination, Sellers was nervous and kept looking at his watch. When asked why, he told the examiner that he and his wife had an important meeting with a realtor and he needed to pick up his wife after work. This led the examiner to suggest he be retested soon. This was particularly important since Sellers failed his polygraph, and he gave significant responses that would normally indicate deception. So, about a week later, on February 24th, Sellers took another polygraph test, and the answers and questions are as follows. Do you know if that girl you found died because she was stabbed with a knife? Answer, no. Do you know if that girl you found died because she was shot? Answer, no. Do you know if that girl you found died because she was poisoned? Answer, no. Do you know if that girl you found died because she was choked? Answer, no. Do you know if that girl you found died because she was hit with a baseball bat? Answer, no. Do you know if that girl you found died because she was hit with a tire iron? Answer, no. Do you know if that girl you found died because she was run over by a car? Answer, no. This time, there was no deception indicated from his polygraph test. But you may notice, of course, that he was asked different questions than the last time. This is sometimes done to prevent countermeasures so that they can't prepare for the questions and therefore, control their breathing and not be surprised by a question. So although no questions are a surprise, the examiner goes through them all before the test begins. You also don't want to ask questions in a way that someone could prepare for. And the questions here are specifically designed to elicit guilty knowledge. Only the killer would know the manner of death.
And look, we can talk about this forever if we wanted to. They're polygraph tests. I think we've been pretty consistent on our view of polygraph tests. I've been in the room when polygraph tests were administered. I know there are a lot of people that believe in them, don't believe in them. Is it interesting that he failed the first one? Yes. Did he have a reason? Yes. The police basically, after this second polygraph, combined with their conversations with cop and state, ruled Sellers out. He had clocked out of work sometime after 4 o'clock. By that point, the police were pretty sure that Hay was dead. They were convinced she would have picked up her cousin. The fact that she didn't, or her niece, whatever she was, the cousin, I think, her cousin. The fact that she didn't means that she was dead by 3:30, so therefore the timing didn't really work with him. Yes, he found the body. Yes, his story's a little but given the second polygraph, they were willing to basically eliminate him as a suspect. This has become somewhat controversial in recent weeks, months, I guess, when in the decision to release Adnan Syed and to vacate his conviction, one of the reasons it was given is that the police did not properly eliminate Alonzo Sellers as a suspect. I don't know what that means. Honestly, you get these kind of polygraph results all the time. He passed one, he failed one, he has a good alibi. I don't know. To me, I think this is pretty solid, but it's not as if Alonzo is just a, ordinary guy off the streets.
He's no Boy Scout because he does have a past. In 1994, he'd been arrested for indecent exposure. Apparently, Sellers had been observed running naked through a neighborhood, at which point the police were called. And when police found him, he was in the process of pulling up his pants. He told them he was there to help them find the man who'd been running naked through the neighborhood. It's an awesome response, by the way. In 1996, he did it again. So lest you think that him pulling up his pants and helping the police find the man running naked through the neighborhood was true, Well, he did it again. He was arrested after jumping a fence and landing in a briar bush. That sounds painful if you do not have pants on. In 1998, he did it yet again. This guy has a thing for streaking. The police described the incident as, quote, a black male dashed out in front of my car and began shaking his body in up and down motion. The male had on no clothes. Very bold to do that to the police, by the way. And too bad there's no one around him like daring him to do this. He's just doing it. So that's right. He flashed a cop. Not just like anyone, but a cop. So he's bold. And the police do what they do when someone does something illegal. They chased him through the woods, but Alonzo escaped. Fortunately, though, for the cops, he left his clothes behind, and written on the shirt was the word Alonzo. So if you're going to streak or expose yourself to the police and leave your clothes behind, maybe don't be so responsible as to label your clothes, because they'll find you. And he was found. And the other kind of weird thing about Alonzo is that, remember, he had a walkie-talkie for work, a really expensive walkie-talkie, and he'd lost the walkie-talkie. And sellers would report that this walkie-talkie was stolen on the very day that Hay goes missing. If he had anything to do with Hay's disappearance, what did the walkie-talkie have anything to do with this? It's not clear. But it is kind of a strange coincidence that this walkie-talkie is missing for, I think, quite some time. It's not like he lost it that day, but he reports it stolen on January 13th.
Yeah, I mean, the police come and talk to him about it that day. It would be a little unbelievable that the police come and talk to him about the walkie-talkie, and then he goes and kills Hay, I guess, and then comes back to work and leaves around 4. But, you know, these coincidences in true crime, they'll blow your mind. I know some people take the position there are no coincidences, but they actually happen all the time. This whole question of the streaking thing, one thing I'm interested in is streaking one of those things that tends to elevate to murder, right? Now, peeping Toms absolutely do. Peeping Toms elevate to break-ins, elevate to murders. You see that progression a lot. According to Crime Weekly, who did an extensive investigation into this, they say, and one of the hosts of that show is a former police officer, that streakers actually do not tend to escalate to sexual assault and that sort of thing. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just relaying what they've said. If they did escalate to sexual assault, then you start thinking, well, you know, maybe he's escalating to a sexual assault with Hay and it just went wrong and he murdered her. At least then you might have some sort of motive here. But in any event, it seems like that is not true. That is not what happens. I'm going to take Crime Weekly's word on that.
And I mean, we just have kind of what he's arrested for, but it seems like his indecent exposures are not really of the nature where there's lots of different types of indecent exposure. There are like the peeping Tom kinds, or the kinds who masturbate while they're watching someone, and those people report them for indecent exposure. He seems like he really gets a thrill out of running naked through public places, and especially the one where he exposes himself to the cop.
So, I'm sure you guys have thoughts. We talked about a lot of controversial stuff. So, at Prosecutors Pod for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of that stuff. prosecutorspod@gmail.com if you want to send us emails. If you want to tell us about your experience as a streaker, we'd love to hear it. We'll just do like an all streaking episode. Everybody can tell their streaking stories. Hey, we're talking about this case in the gallery. Come join us there. It's on Facebook. Search for it. Find it. You'll have a lot of fun. Great people. And if you enjoy having these episodes early and ad-free and occasionally learning secrets that maybe no one else will ever know about us, join Patreon. You can see these episodes live. You know, we have an audience tonight and they've been great. We're so glad to have them. Well, Alice, you've said so much, but is there anything else you want to add before we sign off for tonight?
You should have been my attorney and said, don't talk.
I tried. I had saved you. I had made the transition. We were transitioning out and then you brought it back. So
only for our patrons. Got that, Jason? Only for our patrons.
I'm sure people did plenty of streaking in Alabama. At Harvard, go streaking, but not at Harvard Law School. So I missed out on that. They call it primal scream, but they all do it together.
That's pretty funny.
It's like one big, like 500-person streaking
Is
group.
it like the undergrads?
Mm-hmm. It's like you. They do it when they're seniors. No, actually, I think they do it when they're freshmen. I think it's a freshman thing. They do it then. So.
Ours was just before you graduated, so you had 4 years to accomplish it.
Right. All right. Well, as fascinating as this is, we're going to sign off for tonight. We'll be back maybe tomorrow. We're going to talk about that, how we want to do this. Maybe tomorrow, but certainly next week. But until then, I'm Brett.
And I'm Alice.
And we are the Prosecutors.
That was like the nicest ad ever. I'm a birthday cake of a person. I love birthday cake. What a great description. What, are you going to call me homely again? By the way, my friend just listened to that episode. And like right before we got on this, she like texted me furiously and she was like, homely? What the entire dictionary, Brett? And she goes, I know I'm behind. I was like, I'm really glad you guys are willing to fight for me.
You always want friends who will lie for you. That's what you want.
Oh, gosh. There you go. There you go.
There you go.
And I mean, this obviously begs the question, Brett. Like, have you ever streaked before?
I have not, Alice. I have not. I have never streaked before.
Really? I'm a little bit surprised. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, well, Alice, you want to tell us about your streaking event? Sounds like maybe you have
No.
Instacart is on a mission to have you not leave the couch this basketball season, because between the pregame rituals and the postgame interviews, it can be difficult to find time for everything else. So let Instacart take care of your game day snacks or weekly restocks and get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes. Because we hear it's bad luck to be hungry on game day. So download the Instacart app today and enjoy $0 delivery fees on your first 3 orders. Service fees apply for 3 orders in 14 days. Excludes restaurants.
You know what makes every outfit look better? The right bra from Third Love. Their bras make it easy to ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or even stop your shirt buttons from pulling. They make over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, so you'll find your perfect fit. Third Love solves bra problems, or what they call broblems. Real women test every style they make. Comfort and support are guaranteed. So stop settling for bad bras. You deserve better. Get your problem solved today. Save $15 on your first order with code PODCAST15 at thirdlove.com.
Stream the biggest blockbusters this summer with Popcorn Summer Movies on PlutoTV. Experience nonstop action with the first 4 Mission Impossible movies and Top Gun. Laugh out loud to comedies like Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, and The Backup Plan. With thousands of free movies, Pluto TV has something for everyone. Available on live TV and on demand. Download Pluto TV on all your favorite devices and start streaming now.